Wuthering Waves is an open-world game, and it is an expectation that open-world games must have exploration as a main activity outside of main and side quests. Kuro Games did a fairly good job in 1.0, but for some reason the quality of exploration in Wuthering Waves has gone down since 2.0, the update that brought Rinasita's first region, Raguna, to the game. Before I begin to elaborate, allow me to clarify my intention, because I get the impression that true or false, many people nowadays tend to take criticism, constructive or otherwise, as an attack on the game that they like and thus themselves, and as a result condemn the person they deem responsible. If you're familiar with my content, you know that I'm not kind with criticism, and if you're not overly sensitive, you'll probably be able to infer that this is because I want the game to be much better than it currently is because I like it and care about it. If I didn't, I wouldn't be making any videos related to it. Alright, now that that has been established, let's move on to the purpose of this video, the open world exploration of Wuthering Waves. I said in my 2.4 video that other than the weird Leyndell copy that is Capitoline Hill, I have little to no complaints about the open world. If that video was released a week later, that would not be the case. Allow me to elaborate. I started playing Wuthering Waves a day after its release, and the exploration aspect of 1.0 was quite good. The game had chests scattered around the map, low rarity weapon pickups, Sonan's caskets, puzzles and challenges involving different echoes, and blobflies, which are this game's version of crystal lizards from Dark Souls. This style was repeated in subsequent regions like Mount Firmament and Black Shores. The time taken to explore the open world and get a 100% rating is a lot longer than in newer regions because players don't have the ability to fly in the older regions, and because many things weren't marked on the map. This meant that players were more likely to spend more time in the game exploring the open world and looking for items instead of more repetitive tasks like farming for echoes. The inability to fly, although inconvenient, also made the world seem larger because it took more time to travel, at least until the fast travel points were unlocked. It also meant that players had to travel on foot, often coming across items or challenges along the way to their destination. This design philosophy encouraged players to make good use of the game's various movement options such as the grapple tool and glider. Since chests were not marked on the map, players had to look for them, giving the sensor tool a real purpose on top of making each chest intrinsically rewarding. The other challenges also had a bit more variety compared to the newer ones. In contrast, the exploration in 2.X is a lot more convenient thanks to the flight tool but way less interesting. Thankfully, side quests, exploration quests, and enemy groups still have to be found organically, but the same cannot be said for some of the other content. Instead of being individually scattered around the map for players to come across, most of the chests are now placed in small groups that are marked on the map for some reason. The puzzles and challenges are different and refreshing but can also be easily tracked. This encourages players to treat the open world as a checklist. In this case, you're more likely to, let's say, open the map, fly to a chest spot, use the sensor tool if you're lazy, collect them, and repeat. The same goes for challenges and puzzles. Since players can fly everywhere now, the open world features a lot more verticality, which heavily incentivizes players to fly everywhere. This makes the other movement options, including the pickup that allows the player to sprint, less relevant, especially when the flight tool uses its own stamina bar separate from the one that is used for everything else. As a result of this shift in design principles, the exploration of Wuthering Waves' open world since 2.0 has become more of an extrinsic activity instead of an intrinsic one. Organic exploration is less of a priority now as the designers made the map into a checklist made up of points of interest, and the open world, although still breathtaking, becomes less interesting with fewer surprises. This is a problem because the very idea of exploration is intrinsic. Players will want to explore their open world just to see what it contains, and finding content is its own reward. Just showing them where most of the content is removes the very incentive to explore, making the open world less relevant. This open world issue ties in with another problem with recent versions of Wuthering Waves. In my 2.4 video, as well as in streams of 2.2 and 2.4's main quest, I lamented the lack of player interaction in certain segments of these quests, such as the designers placing grapple points and wing rays leading straight to an objective, instead of requiring the player to climb or fly there on their own. Really? You can't trust your players to just jump from block to block. You need to put this in place, okay. Now that's a bit excessive. If you put a bunch of blocks that you can reasonably platform without any help, anyway, then why put this here? And if you put this here, then why make it like this? Why make the path shaped like this? When traveling to Capitoline Hill in the main quest, the duo travels not by land, because that would involve input from the player and some interaction with the environment. And we can't have that nowadays, so the developers put a wing ray in there, because why not? I didn't know it at the time, but this distinct lack of player input has also been applied to the open world for quite some time now, although to a lesser extent. The automatic marking of chest spots, challenges, and puzzles on the map removes the need for players to even find them in the first place. Since players can fly, finding them wouldn't even be difficult or time-consuming, yet the designers didn't even allow us to do it ourselves. This naturally led to players flying from point to point collecting rewards because it's the most efficient method. Obviously, this is not what exploration should be, and implementing Raguna and Septimont in this manner were notable mistakes for the open world designers. After realizing all this, I can only come to one conclusion. Kuro Games' quest designers seemingly no longer trust players to find and figure things out on their own, and the open world designers are moving in the same direction. The question then is, why? It seems very odd because in stark contrast, the combat designers made very difficult bosses like Hologram Crownless Hecate and Fleur-de-Lis, knowing that players would eventually be skilled enough to figure out and overcome these challenges. This will sound very familiar to Dark Souls enjoyers because the same can be said for From Software. Both studios trust the player's skill and patience, and this trust gives them the confidence to increase the difficulty of their toughest challenges. So why can the same not be said for the people in charge of Wuthering Waves' main quest and open world? Unfortunately, I don't have an answer, and I probably never will. All I can do is hope for a better exploration experience in the future, perhaps something like 1.X or something better than that. Like I said, I want Wuthering Waves to be better, and that's why I bring up shit like this. If you want to know what else I think should or must be improved, check out this focused video or my reviews of various versions of the game. That's all for now, thanks for watching.